this was one of the best heavyweight fights I've seen in a long, long time. A classic heavyweight slugfest between Dominic Brezeale and Izu Ugonoh. Brezeale coming out on top in a wild affair in the 5th round. He managed to knock Ugonoh out. Ugonoh started very well. He was clearly the sharper, more athletic fighter. He was putting his combinations together well. He was moving well, going to the body very well, which is something that the commentators remarked on. And he started buzzing Dominic Brezeale fairly early in the fight. Brezeale was doing his usual thing, coming forward behind the high guard, looking to apply pressure. And Ugonoh was picking him off, capitalizing on his mistakes, so on and so forth. The real fireworks started, I believe, was it in the 2nd or the 3rd round? I forget now. When Ugonoh hurt Brezeale, got him up against the ropes, started unloading to try and get him out of there, and got caught with a counterpunch. And down Ugonoh went pretty hard. And he took a long time getting up, actually. So it was a 50-50 about whether he was actually going to beat the count, because it took a long time getting up, but he did eventually get up. Dominic Brezeale tried to finish him off, but Ugonoh came back in the very same round, showed tremendous heart, actually. Ugonoh coming back. Both guys showed amazing heart in this fight. But Brezeale continued to apply pressure. Brezeale actually got dropped himself in one of the subsequent rounds. He was hurt again. But one thing we know about Dominic Brezeale, and one thing I knew even before he fought Joshua, I knew from the Amir Mansour fight that Dominic Brezeale's got tremendous heart. He's very tough mentally. He doesn't give in when he's been dropped. That's how Dominic Brezeale is. And I saw it in the Mansour fight. He got dropped heavy in the Mansour fight, but he got back up and he wasn't at all bothered. You didn't see any kind of confidence drain out of Brezeale or anything like that. If anything, after he got dropped by Mansour, he got up and fought harder. He was even more aggressive after Mansour dropped him. So he's always had a lot of heart, Dominic Brezeale, and he's a very tough man. And he needed that again here against Izu Ugonoh. Now, Ugonoh, this was really his first rodeo. This was his first time in a fight of this magnitude. And it wasn't, a super fight or anything, but he's not used to fighting in front of crowds that big, at least not in boxing. And he hasn't been in a competitive fight his whole professional career. This was actually the first competitive fight that Izu Ugonoh was involved in against Dominic Brezeale. It was his first fight under Al Heyman. Now, he seemed, I don't know what his stamina is going to be like long term in his career, but his stamina did seem quite suspect in this fight. He gassed out, and that's basically why he lost. That's what he said himself after the fight. He said, look, I just got tired, because they were involved in crazy exchanges, both guys throwing a lot of punches. You would imagine Ugonoh did throw more shots than Brezeale, but I think it was a combination of the pressure that Brezeale was putting Ugonoh under, because no matter what Ugonoh threw at Brezeale kept coming forward. And Brezeale was forcing work from Ugonoh. Just by putting himself in front of Ugonoh and pushing him back, he was forcing Ugonoh to keep throwing shots. So that physical and also mental pressure got to Ugonoh, I think, because he just fatigued very, very quickly. As I say, they were throwing a lot of shots for a heavyweight fight, and Ugonoh did empty the tank a few times trying to get Dominic Brezeale out of there, when maybe, especially given Dominic Brezeale's history, he should have been a bit more circumspect and picked his shots a bit better, rather than just going all out to try and knock Dominic Brezeale out. Because, as I say, yeah, Joshua managed to knock him out, but Joshua softened him up for several rounds before he emptied the clip on him, So maybe Ugonoh should have taken note of that and thought, if I get this guy hurt, I'm still going to have to be careful. I can't empty the tank, because he's very, very tough. He's got a lot of heart. So it's definitely a good learning fight for Izu Ugonoh. He's got a lot to build on there, a lot to work on. He's got fast hands. He's a good body puncher. He's got good movement. He's athletic. But the stamina is definitely an issue. Some people might say the chin, but I think he took good shots. These are heavyweights at the end of the day. You don't have an iron jaw. But I also think that Ugonoh going down, particularly later on in the fight in the 5th, was more to do with fatigue than actual being hurt. So, yeah, it was a wild fight, a great fight. For those of you who ain't seen it, I recommend you go see it. Just Google it. It's on, I think you can find it on YouTube. You can find it on Daily Motion. So definitely go watch the fight. Very, very entertaining heavyweight encounter. And Dominic Brezeale comes out on top, a tough man. And I think this does put into perspective the gap between the Anthony Joshuas of the world and some of the other heavyweights, you know, because Dominic Brezeale is not shit. You know, he's not a rubbish heavyweight. He's a very tough man. Yeah, well, some people may say, oh, he is rubbish. But no, I think somebody who's that big and strong and has that much heart, I can't say he's rubbish because, you know, a 6'7" man who's got that kind of will is going to be difficult for most guys to deal with. You know, I think Dominic Brezeale has some good wins in him. That was a good win right there against Izu Ugonoh. An unbeaten guy, an unproven guy, yes, but still a good win. He had a good win over Amir Mansour. So I think Dominic Brezeale is going to be a difficult fight for most of the heavyweights in the top 10. You know, I'm certainly not saying that he beats most of them at all. He's very rudimentary. Dominic Brezeale, he's slow. He's easy to hit. But as I say, with that size and strength and that kind of will that he has, I mean, you can almost kind of think of him, if you want to use an analogy, as like a heavyweight Antonio Margarito. You know, a poor version of a heavyweight Antonio Margarito. A guy who just comes forward relentlessly, puts the pressure on. He's tall, but he doesn't really use his height and reach. Just puts the pressure on relentlessly. And some guys will break under that type of pressure. You know, we'll see. I think Dominic Brezeale is also a value for money fighter. Whenever he gets in the ring, we know he's going to come to fight. We know he's going to try hard. So, you know, hats off to Dominic Brezeale. He did a good job there and he took out Izu Ugonoh. Ugonoh can definitely come again. I think he's got potential. But yeah, the stamina, that would be my worry because he's a very muscular guy. So you wonder, can the stamina be rectified at all? Is he just too muscle bound? How much of that muscle is natural and how much of it is inflated with, you know, weightlifting and what have you? Because the guys who are more naturally very muscular tend to have the internal organs to be able to deal with that muscularity. You know, their bodies are genetically designed to be carrying around a certain amount of weight, and therefore their lung capacity and their heart and so on and so forth is appropriately proportioned to carry around that type of muscle mass. But other guys who pump up their muscle mass with weightlifting, their heart and lungs weren't designed to carry around that much muscle. And so they tend to fatigue a lot easier. So I'm not sure exactly how much weight training Ugonoh does, how much of it is natural, how much of it is inflated. I don't know. But yeah, that's what I would say with Ugonoh. But like I say, I think he's got a lot of potential, Ugonoh. You know, I like the speed. I like the movement, the combination punching ability. I like all that. But stamina needs to be sorted out. Defense is not the greatest as well. But there's potential there. So we'll see. Let me know how you felt about the fight. What did you think about Brezeale's performance, Ugonoh's performance? Where do you see the careers of both of these guys going forward? I mean, one thing I can say about Brezeale, he won't have a long career because he gets hit way too much. You're taking that kind of punishment, particularly from heavyweights, it's going to take its toll on your body. But I do think Brezeale, was that even an upset? I don't think so. I think Brezeale was actually the favorite going into the fight. But I think Brezeale was one of those kind of guys, because of his toughness, he may have an upset or two in him. You know, he may go into certain fights later on in his career where he's the underdog against somebody who's more highly touted and more highly regarded, and Brezeale will pull it out the back because he will just outgut them, take them into a dogfight, and do to them what he did to Ugonoh. So I think it's not the last time you've seen Brezeale do something like that, and I think he'll do it to, you know, somebody more high profile in the future. So yeah, good fight, excellent heavyweight slugfest. The crowd loved it. I definitely loved it. More of the same, please. So let me know what you think about everything I talked about in this video. All right, it's happening. I'm out.